morning everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to show you how to make a tie blanket. The tie blankets that we're going to make, we're kind of a tall family, so we're going to make a blanket that's 7 foot by 7 foot. You can make them the size of, be more of a lap blanket and make them something smaller, but for this size they end up being about $40 to make for that larger size. So we went to Hobby Lobby and got some fabric. This one measured out 2.5 by 2.5 yards, and then we found a good other fabric to pair, fleece fabric. But we're going to go ahead and wash it, put it through the laundry first and dry it to make sure we get some of that beading off before we begin the whole process, and then we'll lay it out and show you how to cut it. But first we want to wash it and get all the beading off so we can kind of have a clean cut. But have them in cold water, large load, even put some, OxyClean in with them so that it can help at least prevent maybe some of that running of the color that might happen. So just getting them in the wash first, and then we'll be back shortly to start the process. So what you're going to need in addition to the 2 fleece blankets that we showed you, you're going to need, we use some painter's tape, Scotch tape, just any scissors that works well for you. We found these kid scissors cut really well, cut the fleece blankets really well, and then a ruler. And then for the flat surface, we've got a couple different 6-foot tables that we use to lay it out on. You can do it on the floor, any flat surface that you have.
Don't need that helper.
No, we don't need that helper. So we've got the blankets all washed, and now we're going to lay them out. We've got some tables out that we can spread them across so we can start matching them up and then cutting and tying. But first off, to lay them out, you figure out which side you want on the outside and lay that side face down across the table. And same thing for the other blanket. You want to make sure whichever side you want facing out, now laying facing out on top of the other blanket. Then you kind of match up the sides. You don't want to pull tight and stretch, but just kind of lightly lay them out against each other, because there's going to be some, like this one, they're not cut exactly the same, so we're going to want to trim some of this off before we start actually cutting the lengths that we want to tie. So when we lay this out over here, you can kind of see there's a little bit of difference. But once you do your cuts to do the ties, it's not going to be enough that anyone would ever notice. So you don't necessarily need to cut it when it's this little of a difference. But then, you look at, ideally when you go to the store and have them cut it, they probably would be the same length and width. But obviously whether it's due to washing it or the measurements just aren't exactly perfect at the store, there is this much of an overlap, and this is probably something that you would want to cut off and take care of before you start the blanket. But this little of a difference in the blankets that we've made, it's not even noticeable by the time you cut it and tie it. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but you can make it extra cutting if you want, or just let it be. Again, the top piece is the longer piece, so we're really only cutting to line it up to the purple underneath. We're not cutting the purple to just the top layer that is bigger than.
We're going to be measuring 4 inches in so that the slits that you're going to cut, that you will eventually tie, will be 4 inches, so that you have enough room to tie it and have extra fabric sticking out. And when we tape it on, use the tape to mark it. The 4 inches, we're going to have the 4 inches as the inside. So the 4 inches will be here on the tape instead of here. So you'll have to remember which way you're taping. And then you're going to flip it again this way, and you're going to use the top blanket is what we do. We use the top blanket and then do another 4 inches and tape it. And then once you get the painter's tape all lined up, you'll end up just cutting out this corner. Now we are just getting the painter's tape ready, and we're gonna tape it down so that we have the measurement 4 inches. Come on, come on. Do you have enough to go under the tape? And we did the 4 inches on the inside of it, so you're going to measure, you're going to line the tape, this edge of the tape along the side of the inside.
And you could use masking tape or whatever tape you want. We just use the painter's tape with glue, and it's easier to see. And then we pull off enough on each edge that you can tape it to the table so it holds it nice and tight. Because when you start cutting, it moves and shifts a little bit, but this seems to hold it down. We found it seems to hold it down well. So, and you could even use painter's tape to measure the corners. You can use whatever tape you want. This is just what we found works for us. So now we're ready to start cutting, and it's another reason we use the painter's tape is because the width of the painter's tape is about in between 1.25 inches and 1.5 inches, which is what you want your notches to be. So kind of using this as the guide and the measure each time I make a notch. But first I usually cut the corner here. This is the corner we measured out that we'll want to cut. And usually I just leave this for later so that if there's any pulling or tugging as we're cutting and tying, we don't cut too much. But first off, I kind of use, measure from the tape to this side of the tape, cut a notch, and continue to do it again until I have, 4 or 5 different notches, so I can get it started. Because then from here you can kind of just cut all the way straight to the blue, to the 4-inch mark at the painter tape that we laid down. So I'm getting a little ways in, but usually we wait until I get one whole side done so that there's not pulling and tugging as my daughter will come in and start tying. We wait until one full side is done, and then once I go around the corner, they'll start following behind me to start tying. And we found this just little scissors that our daughter has for school. Works really good. You can probably go buy a special sewing scissors, or if you have one at home, that probably works too, but we found that this one that she had for school cuts really well. So now I'm getting to the end, only a few more cuts till I get to the painter's tape at the end again. And it's never exactly perfect in between, you know, the last couple cuts. Actually, this one looks like it's going to be perfect, but the last one in between, you know, the painter's tape, you kind of eyeball it to make sure if it's not going to be exactly, if it's too wide or too narrow, kind of make that last one, you can eyeball it to make sure it's equal so you don't end up with just a tiny strip either. And just keep cutting exactly up into the blue painter's tape, and that's your measure. And now we're ready to go around the corner, cutting the corners out. And now the girls can start tying down that side, and I'll start cutting down this side.
We're just going to do a regular knot because we found that it's the easiest. And what you're going to do is you're going to take the top piece and the bottom piece and put the bottom through like this, and then put the purple all the way through, and then pull the purple through on the top and this one on the bottom, so that once you get all of the sides tied, there'll be contrast. So the purple flabs will show up with this, and the patterned ones will show up on the back with the purple. And you're going to want to tie it twice. So then you just do it one more time and pull to the top. And you have one run.
And again, using the painter's tape, since we're using that as the measure for each of the notches, it makes it a perfect cut for this piece underneath too, because each of these is going to get tied as well. So it makes it a perfect width as well. And here you can see, like on this end of the blanket, it has a factory end. You don't really notice it that much when it's the dark colors here, but like this one has mostly white at the end, so you can kind of see right here there's that factory end. So you can decide whether you want to go along this side and cut that off or not. So I wanted to show you the finished product. We've made a couple blankets over the past couple days. This is Cecilia's with owls and a blue background that matched some of the patterns in the owls that turned out really well. This is for Allie, and this pattern kind of matches what she has in her room, and it has paired it with a navy blue background that turned out pretty good. And this is the pattern that we showed you during the video with blue and purple butterflies and flowers, and paired it with a dark purple that turned out really well also. And each of these blankets takes about an hour a piece, and you get a little bit faster as you move along, but you can kind of figure it'll take about an hour each. And then I think this is Cavick's way of saying he needs the next blanket. Thanks everybody. Bye.
Bye.